Welcome to Living Word Media Sunday School. I'm Pastor Eustace Duffus. If this lesson blessed you, please like, share, and subscribe to Living Word Media. Tell a friend to tell a friend about Living Word Media. Thanks for joining us. Stay rooted and walk good.
What does it really mean to have a sound mind, and what if losing it is closer than you think? What if the struggle people see on the outside is only a small glimpse of a deeper battle within? Why would a man completely restored by Jesus Christ make people afraid instead of grateful? What does this story reveal about the difference between being controlled and truly being free? And what if the encounter in Gospel of Luke chapter 8 verses 26 to 36 exposes something in us we don't always recognize? What happens when a person loses control, not just of their actions, but of their mind? As Jesus Christ steps into a region known for darkness in Gospel of Luke chapter 8 verses 26 to 36, he encounters a man who is no longer living. He is surviving, broken, isolated, and completely overtaken from within. The community had tried everything they knew, even chaining him, yet nothing external could fix what was happening inside, creating a powerful tension between control and true transformation. But when Jesus arrives, he does not manage the situation, he confronts it, revealing authority over what no one else could change. This moment is not just about one man's deliverance. It forces us to ask whether real healing comes from restraint, or from complete restoration of the mind. Question 1. What does the condition of the man before encountering Jesus reveal about the nature and impact of spiritual bondage on a person's identity and behavior? What happens when a person is still alive, but no longer in control of their own life? This man is not just struggling, he is completely overtaken, and the text reveals a condition that is deeper than physical or emotional distress. He is isolated, living among tombs, cut off from community, dignity, and normal life, which immediately creates tension between what he once was and what he has become. His behavior is chaotic, his identity is fractured, and even when people try to restrain him with chains, he breaks free, showing that external control cannot fix internal bondage. This is where the urgency rises, because what is happening to him is not just visible, it is spiritual at its core, affecting how he thinks, acts, and lives. His condition reveals that spiritual bondage distorts identity, turning a person from someone with purpose and dignity into someone driven by forces beyond their control. He is no longer described by his name, his story, or his value, but by his condition, which shows how bondage can redefine a person's identity if left unaddressed. The tension deepens when we realize that the community could see the problem but could not solve it. They tried to manage him, contain him, and distance themselves from him, but nothing changed his condition. This reveals a critical truth. What controls the mind eventually controls the life, and no amount of external pressure can restore what has been internally broken. The urgency is that this is not just his story, it is a picture of how unseen struggles can shape behavior, isolate individuals, and distort identity when there is no true intervention. Have you ever seen someone whose actions made no sense on the surface, yet you could sense something deeper was going on underneath? This question invites you to look beyond behavior and consider what may be driving it. Are there areas in your own life where you feel out of control, where patterns repeat even when you try to stop them? Do you recognize how internal struggles, whether spiritual, emotional, or mental, can influence how you respond, think, and interact with others? It also challenges you to consider how you view people who are struggling. Do you only see their behavior, or do you recognize the deeper need behind it? Reflection here requires honesty, because it is possible to focus on outward actions while ignoring the root issues shaping them. This passage calls you to move beyond surface-level responses and pursue true understanding and transformation. First, you must recognize that not all problems can be solved externally, and that real change often requires addressing what is happening within. Second, develop compassion and discernment when dealing with others, understanding that behavior may be a symptom rather than the root issue. Third, examine your own life for patterns that feel difficult to control, and seek help, guidance, and truth that address those areas at their source rather than just managing outcomes. Fourth, stay connected to environments and influences that support growth, stability, and clarity, rather than isolation or confusion. Finally, remain open to transformation, recognizing that change begins when the root is addressed, not just the surface. Spiritual bondage does more than influence behavior, it reshapes identity, distorts thinking, and isolates individuals from the life they were meant to live. This man's condition shows that external solutions cannot fix internal problems, and that true restoration requires deeper intervention. If you want lasting change, you must look beyond what is seen and address what is driving it. What controls the inside will eventually shape the outside, but what is transformed at the root can restore the whole life. Question 2. How does the transformation of the man after meeting Jesus Christ challenge our understanding of what it means to have a sound mind? What does a sound mind really look like, and how would you recognize it if you saw it? When the people return, they find the same man who once terrified them now, clothed, and in his right mind, sitting at the feet of Jesus. That single picture is loaded with tension. The man hasn't just calmed down, his entire posture has changed, his identity, behavior, and orientation are different. He is no longer driven, restless, or fragmented, he is composed, present, and positioned to learn. The urgency here is that a sound mind is not merely the absence of chaos, it is the presence of order under the authority of Christ. Notice the details. He is clothed, dignity restored, seated, stability established, and at Jesus' feet, alignment secured. This challenges common assumptions. Many define a sound mind as independence, control, or self-expression without limits, but this passage presents something deeper. A sound mind is not self-ruled, it is rightly ordered, where thoughts, desires, and actions come into alignment with truth. The tension sharpens because the crowd sees this and becomes afraid. Why? Because true transformation disrupts expectations. They were used to managing chaos, now they are confronted with authority that actually changes it. This transformation also exposes a contrast. Before Jesus, the man was controlled from within, after Jesus, he is anchored from above. Before, his environment defined him, now, his relationship with Jesus defines him. The urgency is clear. If we misunderstand what a sound mind is, we may pursue calm without transformation, or behavior change without alignment. But the text insists, a sound mind is not cosmetic, it is rooted in who governs the heart and mind. How do you define a sound mind in your own life? Is it simply feeling better, being more in control, or appearing stable on the outside? Or is it being aligned, grounded, and directed by truth? Consider your posture. Are you restless and reactive, or settled and teachable? What is shaping your thinking right now? Pressure, emotion, or the voice of Christ? This question invites you to examine whether your peace is circumstantial or anchored, and whether your stability comes from control or from connection to Jesus. This passage calls you to pursue a sound mind through alignment, not just relief. First, position yourself daily at the feet of Jesus through scripture and prayer, because transformation begins with proximity to truth. Second, restore order to your thinking by filtering thoughts through God's word rather than emotions or trends. Third, practice stability, slow down, be present, and respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. Fourth, protect your environment by limiting influences that stir confusion and prioritizing those that reinforce clarity and growth. Finally, pursue dignity in how you live. Your choices, habits, and speech should reflect a mind that is being renewed, not driven. A sound mind is not just calm, it is ordered, grounded, and aligned under Christ's authority. This man's transformation shows that true change restores dignity, establishes stability, and redirects the heart toward truth. If you want a sound mind, don't just seek relief, seek alignment. What sits at the center of your life will shape the condition of your mind, and when Christ is at the center, everything else begins to come into order. Question 3. Why do you think the community was more afraid after the man was healed than when he was possessed, and what does this reveal about human responses to divine power? Why would people feel more fear at restoration than at chaos? That question exposes a deep tension in the text. The community had grown accustomed to the man being out of control, dangerous, and broken. They knew how to respond to that. They chained him, avoided him, and managed the situation from a distance. But now, everything has changed. The same man is calm, clothed, and in his right mind, sitting at the feet of Jesus Christ. Instead of relief, the people respond with fear. This is not fear of the man, it is fear of the power that changed him. The tension is that chaos is often easier to handle than transformation. Chaos can be explained, contained, and even normalized, but true transformation challenges everything. It forces people to confront what they cannot control or explain. The presence of Jesus introduces a level of authority that disrupts their comfort, their understanding, and their sense of control. This reveals something critical about human nature. People may tolerate dysfunction, but they often resist the power that demands change. The urgency is that divine power does not just fix problems, it exposes deeper realities, and not everyone is ready for that. Their reaction also shows that fear can come from encountering something greater than oneself. When people see real authority, it confronts their assumptions, their limitations, and their independence. Instead of embracing the miracle, they ask Jesus to leave. This creates a powerful contrast between what was available to them and what they chose. The urgency here is that it is possible to witness transformation and still reject the source of it. This is not just about their response, it is a mirror of how people today can respond to truth, power, and change. How do you respond when something challenges your comfort or your understanding? Are you more comfortable managing familiar problems than embracing change that requires adjustment? Have there been moments when you sensed God working in a way that made you uncomfortable, uncertain, or even resistant? This question invites you to examine whether you welcome transformation or avoid it because of what it might require. It also challenges you to consider whether fear in your life is rooted in uncertainty, control, or resistance to change. This passage calls you to recognize and respond correctly to the presence and power of God. First, you must be willing to move beyond comfort and accept that true transformation may disrupt what feels familiar. Second, do not allow fear to push you away from what God is doing. Instead, let it draw you closer with humility and openness. Third, examine areas in your life where you may be managing problems instead of seeking real change, and invite God into those areas. Fourth, develop trust in God's authority, understanding that what He changes is ultimately for restoration, not harm. Finally, choose acceptance over avoidance, recognizing that rejecting transformation can keep you in a cycle of limitation and stagnation. People often fear what they cannot control, and true transformation introduces a level of authority that challenges human comfort and understanding. This passage reveals that it is possible to become accustomed to dysfunction while resisting the power that can change it. The choice is not just between fear and comfort, but between remaining the same and embracing transformation. If you want to grow, you must be willing to move beyond what is familiar and trust what God is doing, even when it challenges your expectations. Question 4. In what ways does this passage show the difference between external control, chains, restraints, and internal transformation, deliverance and restoration? What happens when you try to control something externally that is broken internally? This passage creates a powerful contrast between management and transformation. Before encountering Jesus Christ, the man had been bound with chains and restraints. The community tried to control his behavior, limit his movement, and contain the damage. But the tension is clear, nothing they did changed him. He broke the chains, escaped the restraints, and remained in the same condition. This reveals that external control can restrict behavior, but it cannot restore identity or heal the mind. Now compare that to what happens after Jesus intervenes. There are no chains mentioned, no restraints needed, no external force holding him together. Yet the man is calm, clothed, and in his right mind. This is not control, it is transformation. The urgency here is that the same man who could not be managed by human effort is now completely restored through divine authority. This exposes a critical truth. What is changed internally does not need to be forced externally. The tension deepens when we realize how often people rely on external solutions, rules, pressure, systems, or even avoidance, to manage deeper issues. Those methods may create temporary order, but they do not produce lasting change. Jesus does not manage the man. He addresses the root, and when the root is changed, the behavior follows. This passage forces a question. Are we trying to control outcomes, or are we seeking transformation at the source? The urgency is that without internal change, external control becomes a cycle that never truly resolves the problem. Are there areas in your life where you are trying to manage behavior instead of addressing the root cause? Do you rely on structure, pressure, or avoidance to keep things in order, while something deeper remains unresolved? Have you experienced moments where external solutions worked temporarily but did not last? This question invites you to examine whether your approach to change is focused on control or transformation. It also challenges you to consider how you respond to others. Are you trying to manage people, or help them experience real change? This passage calls you to shift your focus from external control to internal transformation. First, identify areas where you may be relying on surface-level solutions and ask what deeper issue needs to be addressed. Second, invite God into those areas, allowing truth, reflection, and guidance to bring real change rather than temporary restraint. Third, be patient with the process of transformation, understanding that lasting change often requires time, consistency, and intentional effort. Fourth, when helping others, focus on understanding and addressing root issues rather than simply correcting behavior. Finally, build habits that support internal growth, such as prayer, study, and accountability, so that change becomes sustainable and not dependent on external pressure. External control can limit behavior, but only internal transformation can restore a life. This passage shows that what is managed on the outside will eventually break free if the inside remains unchanged. True change begins at the root and flows outward, creating stability that does not require constant restraint. If you want lasting transformation, you must move beyond control and pursue change that reaches the heart and mind. Question 5. How does the man's restoration to being clothed and in his right mind illustrate the relationship between spiritual healing and personal dignity? What does it look like when a life is not just fixed, but restored? When the people return, they don't just see a healed man, they see a restored person. He is clothed and in his right mind, sitting at the feet of Jesus Christ. That detail is intentional, and it creates a powerful tension between who he was and who he has become. Before, he was exposed, uncontrolled, and disconnected from himself and others. Now, he is covered, composed, and positioned with purpose. This is not just behavior change, it is dignity restored. Being clothed represents more than physical covering. It symbolizes the return of identity, value, and self-awareness. His previous condition stripped him of dignity, leaving him defined by his brokenness rather than his humanity. But after his encounter with Jesus, he is no longer identified by what controlled him, but by his restored condition. The urgency here is that spiritual healing does not only remove what is wrong, it restores what was lost. It brings a person back to wholeness, where identity, behavior, and purpose align again. The phrase, in his right mind, shows that dignity is closely connected to clarity and stability. When the mind is restored, a person can think clearly, act intentionally, and live with awareness of who they are. The tension is that many people seek relief from problems, but not full restoration of identity. This passage challenges that limited view by showing that true healing affects how a person sees themselves and how they function in the world. The urgency is clear. Without dignity, a person may function, but not fully live. With dignity restored, they regain both identity and direction. Do you see yourself, and others, through the lens of brokenness or restoration? Have there been areas in your life where you felt defined by your struggles rather than your identity? This question invites you to consider how healing has affected your sense of self. Do you recognize the connection between clarity of mind and a restored sense of worth? It also challenges you to think about how you treat others. Do you see beyond their condition to their potential for restoration? Reflection here requires honesty, because dignity can be overlooked when focus remains on behavior instead of identity. This passage calls you to pursue not just improvement, but restoration of identity and dignity. First, align your view of yourself with truth, recognizing that your identity is not defined by past struggles but by what has been restored. Second, cultivate clarity of mind through intentional focus on truth, reflection, and disciplined thinking. Third, treat others with dignity, even when they are struggling, understanding that their current condition does not define their value. Fourth, create environments that reinforce restoration rather than shame, allowing growth to take place without constant reminder of past issues. Finally, continue to build habits that support both mental clarity and personal integrity, ensuring that restoration is maintained over time. Spiritual healing is not complete until dignity is restored. This passage shows that true transformation brings a person back to clarity, identity, and purpose, not just away from dysfunction. When the mind is restored, dignity follows, and when dignity is restored, a person can live fully again. If you want lasting change, you must pursue not only relief from problems, but restoration of who you are meant to be. Question 6. What does Jesus' authority over the demons teach us about his power over both visible and invisible struggles in our lives? What kind of authority speaks, and what no one else could control immediately obeys? In this moment, Jesus Christ does not negotiate, struggle, or attempt to manage the situation. He commands, and the unseen forces respond. This creates a powerful tension because everything the community tried had failed, yet with a single word, Jesus does what no one else could do. The man's condition was not just visible chaos, it was driven by an unseen force, and Jesus addresses it directly. This reveals that his authority is not limited to what people can see, it extends into what cannot be seen but still has real influence. The urgency of this moment is that it exposes how much of life is shaped by things that are not always visible. The man's outward behavior was only the result of a deeper issue, and Jesus demonstrates that he has authority over both the visible symptoms and the invisible cause. This challenges the assumption that problems are only what appears on the surface. The tension increases because it forces us to consider that some struggles cannot be resolved by external solutions alone. Jesus does not treat the symptoms, he confronts the source, and when the source is addressed, everything changes. Another layer of tension is found in the immediate response of the demons. They recognize Jesus' authority even when others do not. This highlights a contrast between spiritual awareness and human understanding. The urgency is clear. If even unseen forces respond to his authority, then his power is not partial, it is complete. This means there is no area, visible or invisible, beyond his reach. The question becomes not whether he has authority, but whether we recognize and respond to it. Are there areas in your life where you are focusing only on what you can see, while ignoring what may be influencing it beneath the surface? Do you recognize that some struggles require deeper understanding and not just surface-level solutions? Have you experienced situations where addressing the root issue brought greater clarity and change than simply managing the symptoms? This question invites you to examine how you approach challenges, whether you deal only with what is visible or seek to understand what may be shaping it internally. This passage calls you to trust and apply the authority of Christ to every area of your life. First, recognize that not all problems are purely external, and be open to addressing deeper influences that may be shaping your thoughts, behaviors, or patterns. Second, bring both visible and unseen struggles into alignment with truth through prayer, reflection, and intentional focus. Third, avoid relying solely on external solutions when deeper understanding and transformation are needed. Fourth, build confidence in Christ's authority by consistently turning to him for guidance and clarity, especially in areas that feel difficult to resolve. Finally, remain aware that real change often begins at the source, not the surface, and allow that awareness to guide your decisions and responses. The authority of Christ extends beyond what can be seen, reaching into the deeper influences that shape behavior and experience. This passage shows that true change happens when the root is addressed, not just the symptoms. If you want lasting transformation, you must recognize that both visible and invisible struggles matter, and that Christ's authority is sufficient for both. What is beyond human control is not beyond his power. Why might Jesus have allowed the demons to enter the herd of swine, and what deeper meaning can we draw from that event? Why would something destructive be allowed to continue, even for a moment? That question creates immediate tension in this passage. After the demons are confronted by Jesus Christ, they beg not to be sent away but to enter a nearby herd of swine. Jesus permits it, and instantly the herd rushes into the water and is destroyed. This moment is dramatic, unsettling, and intentional. It raises a deeper question. What is being revealed through this event? First, this action exposes the true nature of what had been controlling the man. What was unseen within him becomes visible in the behavior of the swine. The same destructive force that had been hidden now shows itself openly, chaotic, uncontrollable, and ultimately leading to destruction. The urgency here is that what may appear manageable or contained internally can have devastating consequences when fully expressed. The event is not random, it is a revelation. Second, it demonstrates the value of one restored life. The loss of the herd contrasts with the restoration of the man, forcing a difficult but necessary comparison. The tension is that something of material value is lost, yet something of far greater value is restored. This challenges how people measure worth, whether they prioritize possessions or transformation. The reaction of the community later suggests that they struggled with this tension, focusing more on what was lost than on what was restored. Third, it reveals the destructive direction of unchecked influence. The swine do not stabilize or recover, they move rapidly toward destruction. This illustrates that what is harmful does not remain neutral, it progresses. The urgency is clear. If something destructive is not addressed, it will eventually lead to loss. This moment makes visible what had been hidden, showing both the danger and the necessity of intervention. Have you ever seen the true nature of something only after its effects became visible? This passage invites you to consider how hidden influences can shape outcomes over time. Are there areas in your life where something may seem controlled but is actually leading in a destructive direction? It also challenges you to examine how you measure value. Do you focus more on what is lost or on what is restored? Reflection here requires honesty, because it is easy to overlook deeper meaning when attention is fixed on immediate impact. This passage calls you to recognize and address what may be influencing your life beneath the surface. First, Be attentive to patterns or behaviors that reveal deeper issues, rather than dismissing them as isolated events. Second, prioritize transformation over temporary stability, understanding that addressing the root is more valuable than preserving what is comfortable. Third, be willing to accept change, even when it involves loss or discomfort, because true restoration often requires adjustment. Fourth, evaluate what you value most, ensuring that your priorities align with what leads to growth and life rather than short-term gain. Finally, remain aware that what is left unaddressed can move in a destructive direction, making early recognition and response essential. This event reveals that what is hidden will eventually become visible, and that destructive influences do not remain contained. They move toward loss if not addressed. It also highlights the greater value of restoration over material loss, challenging how we define importance. If you want to experience lasting change, you must be willing to confront what is beneath the surface and prioritize what leads to life over what simply feels secure. Question 8. How does the reaction of the townspeople contrast with the response of the delivered man, and what does this teach about accepting or rejecting God's work? How can two groups witness the same miracle and respond in completely opposite ways? That tension sits at the heart of this moment. The townspeople see the man restored, calm, clothed, and in his right mind, yet instead of rejoicing, they are afraid and ask Jesus Christ to leave. Meanwhile, the man who was delivered has a completely different response. He wants to stay with Jesus, to follow him, and remain close to the source of his transformation. This contrast reveals something powerful. The same encounter with God can either draw you closer or push you away, depending on how you respond. The townspeople focus on what they lost, the herd of swine, the disruption, the unfamiliar change, and their fear leads them to reject what they do not understand. The man, however, focuses on what he gained, clarity, identity, restoration, and his response is gratitude and commitment. The urgency is that both responses are still present today. Some people encounter truth and step closer, while others encounter the same truth and step back. The difference is not in what is seen, but in how it is interpreted. The tension deepens because rejecting God's work does not always come from hostility. It can come from discomfort, fear, or unwillingness to change. This passage forces a critical realization. Exposure to transformation does not guarantee acceptance of it. When you encounter something that challenges you, do you move toward it or away from it? Have there been moments when you sensed something meaningful happening, but discomfort or uncertainty caused you to pull back? Are you more focused on what you might lose, or on what you could gain through growth and change? This question invites you to examine your response to truth and transformation, recognizing that your reaction reveals what you value most. This passage calls you to respond intentionally when confronted with truth and change. First, be aware of your initial reactions, fear, resistance, or hesitation, and examine what is driving them. Second, choose to move toward growth rather than away from it, even when it feels unfamiliar or challenging. Third, focus on the value of transformation rather than the cost of change, understanding that what is gained often outweighs what is lost. Fourth, cultivate gratitude for progress and restoration, allowing it to deepen your commitment rather than remain a momentary experience. Finally, remain open to continued growth, recognizing that acceptance of truth leads to further transformation over time. The same moment can lead to two completely different responses, one of rejection and one of commitment. This passage shows that transformation is not only about what happens, but about how it is received. If you focus on fear, you may push away what could change you. If you focus on restoration, you will move closer to it. What you choose to embrace or reject will shape your direction going forward. Question 9. What responsibility comes with deliverance, based on Jesus telling the man to return home and testify, and how does this apply to believers today? What do you do after your life has been changed? Keep it to yourself, or carry it to others? This moment creates a powerful tension. The man who has just been restored wants to stay with Jesus Christ. It makes sense. Why would he leave the one who changed everything? But Jesus tells him something unexpected. Return to your own house, and show how great things God hath done unto thee. Instead of staying close physically, he is sent out with purpose. This reveals that deliverance is not the end, it is the beginning of responsibility. The man is no longer defined by his past condition, but now by his assignment. His story becomes his message. The urgency here is that transformation is not meant to be hidden, it is meant to be shared. What happened to him was personal, but it was not private. It carried purpose beyond himself. The tension deepens because many would assume that closeness to Jesus means staying in one place, but here, Closeness is expressed through obedience. The man's desire was to remain, but Jesus redirects him to go. This shows that true connection is not just about proximity, it is about participation in purpose. The urgency is clear. If transformation is received but not shared, its impact is limited. But when it is expressed, it multiplies. What have you experienced that could help someone else? Have you ever felt the tension between staying comfortable and stepping into responsibility? Are there ways your story, growth, or change could be meaningful to others if you chose to share it? This question invites you to consider whether you are holding on to what you have received or allowing it to extend beyond you. This passage calls you to recognize and embrace the responsibility that comes with change. First, identify the areas where you have experienced growth or transformation and consider how they could serve others. Second, be willing to step beyond comfort and share your experience in ways that are honest and helpful. Third, understand that your story does not have to be perfect to be impactful, it simply needs to be real. Fourth, look for opportunities to connect with others who may benefit from what you have learned or experienced. Finally, remain consistent in your growth so that what you share continues to develop and remain meaningful. Transformation carries responsibility, and what has been restored in you is meant to reach beyond you. This passage shows that change is not only for personal benefit but also for broader impact. If you want your experience to have lasting value, you must be willing to share it and allow it to serve others. What you carry has purpose, and when you use it, it becomes part of something greater than yourself. How can this passage shape our understanding of mental, emotional, and spiritual wholeness in today's world? What does it really mean to be whole, and how do you know when you truly are? In a world where people are searching for stability, identity, and peace, this passage gives a powerful and complete picture of wholeness. The man in this story was not just dealing with one issue. His life was affected mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. He was unstable in his thinking, isolated in his relationships, and controlled at a deeper level. This creates a strong tension because many today experience similar fragmentation. Life feels disconnected, unsettled, or out of alignment. After encountering Jesus Christ, everything changes. The man is described as in his right mind, which reflects mental clarity, emotional stability, and spiritual alignment. This shows that wholeness is not just about feeling better or functioning externally, it is about being restored at the core. The urgency is that many people pursue solutions that address only one dimension, mental strategies, emotional coping, or external adjustments, without addressing the deeper integration of all three. This passage challenges that approach by showing that true wholeness involves alignment across the whole person. The man is not just calmer, he is reordered. His thoughts, actions, and identity are now consistent with one another. The tension deepens because it reveals that partial solutions can leave deeper issues unresolved. If one area improves but another remains unchanged, the person is still not fully whole. The urgency is that without complete alignment, instability can return, even if temporary progress has been made. This passage presents a holistic view where restoration affects the mind, emotions, and spirit together, creating lasting stability and clarity. How do you define wholeness in your own life? Do you focus more on one area, mental clarity, emotional peace, or spiritual growth, while overlooking the others? Are there areas where you feel balanced, and others where you feel disconnected or unsettled? This question invites you to examine whether your approach to growth is complete or partial. It also challenges you to consider whether what you are pursuing is leading to true alignment or just temporary improvement. This passage calls you to pursue a more complete and integrated approach to growth. First, evaluate your current focus and identify any areas that may be neglected, ensuring that your development includes mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects. Second, seek alignment by bringing your thoughts, emotions, and actions into consistency with truth, rather than allowing them to operate independently. Third, build habits that support overall stability, such as reflection, intentional thinking, and consistent engagement with truth. Fourth, be patient with the process of growth, understanding that wholeness develops over time and requires ongoing attention. Finally, remain aware that true stability comes from integration, not isolation, and aim to cultivate balance in every area of your life. Wholeness is not partial, it is complete alignment of the mind, emotions, and spirit. This passage shows that real transformation affects every part of a person, creating stability that is not easily shaken. If you want lasting change, you must pursue growth that reaches the whole person, not just one area. What is aligned will remain stable, and what is integrated will function as it was intended.
Thank you for watching Living Word Media. If this lesson bless you, please like, share, and subscribe. Tell a friend to subscribe to Living Word Media. Thanks again for watching. Stay rooted and walk good.